Hi, everybody. My name is Eleazar Gonzalez. I work for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension in Jefferson City, Missouri. And we are starting this webinar series in a response to the pandemic situation that society is currently living. And one of the issues about we want to address here is how to help people to start their own gardening and being more independent regarding food security. Today, we are going to start with the first session. We are going to cover 9 sessions for this training. We are a team of 8 people, including Andrew and all people who are helping in the back, who are not going to present. But we have a very diversity of speakers who are experts in different topics. And as you saw the flyer, we are going to tell about 9 topics in total. But let's focus on the today's topic. Today's topic will be about finding a gardening spot, and it will be presented by with you. She is going to take it away.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, for that introduction. As he said, my name is Amy Bax, and I'm the speaker for Module 1, which is finding a spot for your garden. I have been a certified master gardener in central Missouri in the Jefferson City area for 12 years. I have experience with lots of different kinds of gardening. I particularly like the style of gardening that attracts pollinators, bumblebees, hummingbirds, butterflies, and I like gardening with children. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. Okay, session 1, finding a good garden spot. If you have questions along the way, feel free to add them in the chat. I think Dr. Gonzalez has assigned somebody to check the chat. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have the mics open. And if you have any questions, we'll answer them as best we can when we're done. So, finding a garden spot. There are critical things to keep in mind before you start your garden. One of them is to make sure that you're committed to that spot that you pick. It is very difficult to move plants and to move your garden once you've gotten started. You can damage the plants by trying to take them out of the ground. Containers, once the plants get really big and the container is full of water, it can be very heavy. So it's difficult to move them and to relocate your garden. So make sure you're committed and you can have it there before you get started. If you are a person that lives in a multifamily residence, you live in a duplex or an apartment, make sure that your landlord is okay with your site selection, whether it's a raised bed or containers against a wall. It would be terrible if you invest all this work and then it's not an okay site. Something also to keep in mind, a vegetable garden close to your home and to a water source is easier to maintain. A convenient location also simplifies harvesting your vegetables. You're going to be in and out of your garden frequently, watering, checking things. And so the closer it is to you, the more likely you are to perform those tasks, and then the more successful you'll be. And so I wanted to start today with a little bit of a history lesson since this big home gardening movement is really ramping back up. Home gardens, once upon a time, were an incentivized government program, and they were called victory gardens. And they really started hot and heavy at the beginning of World War I, and they continued throughout World War II. In 1942, for example, there were 15 million families that planted victory gardens and participated in the program. 11 million of those were in urban areas, 6 million were in rural areas. There was a big incentive to plant either in your backyard, in your front flower beds. They converted vacant lots. playgrounds, any space that they could possibly grow food, they did. By 1944, there were now 20 million victory gardens, and those gardens produced 8 million tons of fresh fruit and vegetables. That was basically 40% of what was being consumed in the United States. That is a significant impact. And although the takeaway, is it's not an incentivized federal program anymore, it's absolutely a way to guarantee some fresh local produce. You can garden organically. It's a sustainable process. If you're very successful, hopefully you're able to preserve that food so you can enjoy it for a much longer season. We have module on that later in the series. So hopefully that's something that we're able to accomplish. Okay, important factors to consider today. I'm going to talk about sun, slope, soil, the size of your garden, water considerations, and temperature. And there's a short video that we're going to watch, and then we'll recap on the other side.
Hi, my name is Amy Bax. I work for Lincoln University in the Cooperative Extension Program. And this morning we're going to talk about site selection for a home garden. We're sort of in my yard area, and if you look over here behind me, it's in full sun. It's about noon here, and ideally your vegetable garden receives full sun 6 hours a day. The ideal hours are between 10 and 2. So a good time to walk around is around noon to see what areas of your yard are shaded or in full sun. This is in full sun, but it's sloped. You can see it sort of really falls off, so you'd have to be very careful and either berm or terrace, raise it up. If you look up here closer to the road, it's a much flatter area of my yard. However, it's shaded. The shade is dappled, but it is shaded, and vegetable plants just don't do well in the shade. If you look over here, sort of directly behind us, look down at the ground. I mean, we have some plantain, there's a little bit of clover. There's not really any vegetation growing. This area is in full sun, but it is clearly lacking some sort of nutrition in the soil. So if you were to select a site like this, you would need to make sure that certainly a soil test, and you would need amendments. Perhaps you could place a raised bed here. And then you would bring in soil from somewhere else. But if you were to select a site that looks like this, certainly plan on amending your soil.
Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about from the video is sun. In my video I was walking around, it was about noon, so I could really see where the overhead sun was. It's very important to select a site that gets full sun. Try not to select a site near trees because you're going to get shade at one point in the day or another. And also tree roots, especially if they're surface roots, they can be difficult to dig around and bury your plants, and they also provide competition for the nutrition in the soil, so your garden will not do as well. So try to locate away from trees if possible. Again, select an area in full sun. Ideal hours are between 10 and 2 during the day, and at least 6 hours of full sun is really what you need to be successful. If possible, in an outdoor vegetable garden, please try to select a south-facing site because you'll get better sun that way. Talking about sun considerations or indoor lighting, if you have your garden plants indoors, an east-facing window is the best. Fluorescent lights have a blue tone, similar to what our computer screens or our cell phones emit. Those are beneficial for your plant growth. Those light bulbs that emit a red light are not beneficial for your plant growth. And so box stores or garden centers, if you go looking for something labeled grow lights, they will be able to help you find the correct light bulbs. Okay, slope. When you're selecting your site, avoid areas where there's water pooling. You're going to have stagnant puddles of water. Your plants will drown. You're not going to be as successful. You may have to create berms, terrace your property so that you have a much flatter area. Your vegetable garden site should also be fairly level to avoid erosion. If a slope is the only location you have available to you when you're standing at the foot of your garden and looking up, you should try to run your vegetable rows left to right, sort of form terraces rather than having them run up and down the hill. You can minimize soil erosion during heavy rains if you do it that way. You can also sort of step down your vegetable beds, and that will help with erosion as well. Another thing to consider when selecting your site is avoid places that receive really strong winds or a lot of foot traffic. Those strong winds can knock your plants over, like your sweet corn will go crashing. It also keeps the pollinators from being able to do their job. If the area is just super strong, they're going to stay away, and then you're not going to be as successful. Okay. Moving on to soil, in the video we watched, there was a section of my yard that it's pretty flat, it's in full sun, but there's not a lot growing there. There's a few weeds, but not really much. And so that tells me if I have an area where the weeds don't want to grow, it's also probably a place my vegetable plants aren't going to want to grow. So it might be better suited for a raised bed where I'm bringing soil in, or I'd have to have a soil test and then amend the soil so that it's missing something and I need to put it back in, or my plants are not going to grow. So vegetables grow best in well-drained and fertile soils. A well-drained soil is one where just the water moves through quickly. Vegetables can grow in heavy clay or poorly drained soils, but you're going to have to add amendments, or you won't have much success. You can lime clay, but it often takes several seasons before what you have is really good soil. Poor soils can always be improved with organic matter, like compost. Compost piles are a really great thing if you have a lot of kitchen scraps or leaves or things. And I'm sure Dr. Pariso is going to cover those things in the soil section, which is a future module. Purchase soil. If you're going to do a raised bed, oftentimes you'll purchase soil to fill that raised bed. Always know that each soil type has specific qualities for the job that you need it to do. Seed starting soil, if you start your seeds indoors, is very different than what you're going to put in a container and put your flowers in. So to keep that in mind, large box stores and garden centers carry a large selection of bag soils and soil amendments. You should be able to find what you need, and Dr. Pariso is going to tell us what that is in the next module. And also, if you need a large amount of soil, it might be more, probably not cheaper, I'm not sure. It might be more efficient if you can have a load of topsoil brought in, but you'll have to pay for the trucking fee and for the soil. But if you have a large area to fill, it might be more convenient than using a bag. But if all you can bring in are bags, those are perfectly fine too. Size, garden size. For beginning gardeners, we recommend you start with a 4-foot by 4-foot area or a 4-foot by 8-foot area. I've seen recommendations to feed a family of 4. You could even increase to a 10 by 10 garden. But don't underestimate the amount of time it's going to take to water and weed and check for pests like tomato worms, or tie your tomatoes up. And your garden never looks bigger than when you're standing in the middle of it and it's July and you're trying to pull weeds. So start small so that you can be successful. You can always add a row next year or add a little bit, but start small, and so you figure out what vegetables you like, what gardening works for you. And so we definitely recommend start small so you can be successful. Also, you can grow vegetables in small areas like your flower beds, if you build a raised bed, if you have containers. You just have to choose your plants very carefully. Vining crops, like if you grow cucumbers or watermelon or things like sweet potatoes, they need a much larger growing area. In contrast, if you're going to grow root vegetables like beets, carrots, onions, or even lettuce, they need a smaller area. I grow cherry tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets on my deck because it's something I pick frequently, and so it works for me. You can reduce also the amount of space vining crops need if you cage them or put wire around them. You can sort of keep them together and they don't spread so bad. So there are considerations, but if you have limited space, have priorities for your gardens. Water. All right, so we're going to watch another short video and then we're going to talk about it on the other side.
Hi, my name is Amy Bax. I work in the Cooperative Extension Program for Lincoln University, and we're going to talk about water for your home garden. I've always said when you're watering plants, they'll use a rule of thumb. So for example, if you have a container, stick your thumb down in it. If it feels moist, you don't need to water your container. But if you stick your thumb down in it and it feels dry, clearly your plant needs some water. You don't always have to wait till they're droopy before you water something. Your home garden is really no different. You see, sometimes it'll rain. It may rain during the night. You don't actually know how much rain your garden has gotten. So it's sort of the same thing. You need to always find out how much water your garden has so that things don't droop. A good way to do it is to come down and actually squeeze some soil. If you can make a ball, there's enough moisture in your soil, you probably don't need to water your garden. Come down, you can see, you squeeze it to make a ball and water runs out. You probably are getting a little too much water on your garden. Or if you come down and you squeeze it and it doesn't stay together, then you need moisture in your garden, you need to water. And always remember, when you're watering your garden, you're actually watering the roots of your plant, you're not watering the leaves. I run soaker hoses and I'll thread them through my garden so they run right up against the roots of the plants. And then I water in the evening times when I walk my dog. I just have to remember to turn it off when we're done. If you water the leaves, some of the plants, especially tomatoes, if there's a virus, the water will splash on leaves and it'll splash from plant to plant to plant, and then you can spread bad things through your garden. Another thing to consider is distance to water. I have to run garden hoses about 125 feet from the corner of my house, which is the closest hydrant. Just bear that in mind. It's not a problem for us. We just had to buy extra garden hose. So if distance to water is a concern, make sure you always remember that. So in summary, watering during the evening is the best time. It's not uncommon to see your plants droop during the heat of the day. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need water. Come down and check them in the evening, and if they're all standing right back up, check your soil and see how moist your soil is, and then water accordingly.
Okay, so to recap the things that we saw in the video, try not to water just without thinking, or try to feel your soil if you possibly can. I go down and I make a ball, and then I decide there whether or not I want to water. You can actually cause problems in your garden if you're inconsistent about watering. Tomatoes are especially sensitive to something called blossom end rot. If you water very inconsistently, they get a lot for 2 or 3 days, and then they don't get any for 2 weeks, and then you flood them again. Try to always keep the soil moist, but not too wet, not too dry. And you're gonna know that by touching it. Again, containers, stick your thumb down in it, and if it feels moist, you're probably okay. I misspoke on the video. It's actually best to water during the daytime. That way the foliage has an opportunity to dry off. I water mine in the evening, but again, I use soaker hoses, and so the leaves don't get wet. It's the roots that are actually getting the water. And then the thing is, I have to just remember to turn my soaker hoses off when we're done, because then I can, if I run it a long time, I can cause a problem. And clearly you're going to water less often in cool spring. Like right now we're having lots of moisture and the temperatures are cooler. In July when it's super hot and the soil is baked looking and there's big cracks and your plants are drooping, you're going to need to water. Temperature. Okay, outdoor temperature. Trees, shrubs, and flowers, they are sensitive to temperature and to the photo period, to the day length. Watch weather forecasts. The meteorologist is going to tell you that there's a freeze or a frost advisory, and that's the time to protect those tender vegetables from the outdoor temperatures. Your frost date is the average date, or the first or the last freeze for the spring or fall, and those dates are not always accurate. I have seen anything from April 10th to May 15th for our hardiness zone, and it's inaccurate. It's a guess. It's inaccurate as much as 30% of the time, and they can do some real damage to those tender vegetables. Also, that's affected by your local weather, where we have a river effect in Jefferson City, and it changes the weather even between here and Columbia. And topography, if you live at the bottom of a hill or on the top of a hill, it's going to be cooler temperatures, even 1 or 2 degrees at the bottom of the hill than it is at the top. So if you're in a valley, keep that in mind. And there are 3 classifications for temperature for those freeze warnings. Anywhere between actual freezing, which is 32, all the way to 24 degrees and colder. If the meteorologist on the Weather Channel says that there's a frosted freeze advisory, go ahead and cover your plants. You want to protect those tender vegetables. And you're going to protect those tender vegetables from cold temperatures using cloth, plastic, newspaper. You can use straw, evergreen boughs. I've seen boxes or upside down 5-gallon buckets. I myself have a whole stash of old bed sheets that I just keep inside, and I lay them on everything to protect them. And what you're doing is that soil temperature warms up during the daytime. And so when you cover, you're retaining that warm temperature around those plants during the cold of the night. But it's important to remove those coverings in the morning when those temperatures return to normal or return to above freezing, especially plastic, because you can cause damage to those plants. You're going to bake them in that little protective oven that you have created. All right, tips for indoor gardeners. Most houseplants, your vegetables, your flowers, need temperatures in the 70 to 80 degree range during the daytime hours. So if you live in a place where it's hotter or colder than that during the daytime, it's going to affect your production. You live with somebody who likes the air conditioner at 65 degrees, your tomatoes might not like that. Or if you live in a place where you don't turn the air conditioner on and it gets to 85 or 90 degrees, your plants probably aren't going to like that very much either. So that's something to think about. Humidity is essential for plants. The rule of thumb for growing plants indoors is 60 to 80 degrees. You can buy a meter to measure the humidity that's in the air. You can buy that at a box store. I have the option of controlling that with the thermostat in my home. It's an option for, I can turn it winter, summer, and I can affect the percentage. So that might be something you're able to do. You should look into it. When you're watering, try to avoid standing water. Standing water becomes stagnant, and you can create issues with disease or with pests. And when plants are outside, they're in the breeze all the time. There's constant circulating air. So indoor plants also need that circulating air to be healthy and for growth. And research has shown that floor fans are better choices for moving the air around than depending on, say, an overhead ceiling fan. So again, that's something to consider. All right, in summary, this table appears in the guide and we're going to go through it really quick. Outside versus inside spots, we've talked about sunlight versus artificial light. Slope is to be avoided if you can. You can always raise bed or do some terraces or some step downs. Space, smaller is going to be more successful, especially in the beginning. As far as porch pots or containers, milk crates are great. You just line them with newspaper or burlap so that they drain well, and then they've got built-in handles. And even when they've got a full-size plant and they're watered, they're not so heavy you can't pick them up. Water, you're gonna use a rain, hopefully it's better, it's cheaper, or hose water. Just monitor that you're not over-watering or under-watering. Temperatures outside, you really can't control it, so we just cross our fingers. And then indoors, that 70 to 80 degree range that we talked about. Soil, it's available commercially, either in large bulk or in bags, and that will be covered again in a later module. For those inside garden spots, either an east-facing window or you're gonna need some sort of grow light, blue colored fluorescent bulbs. Hydroponics, I'm only gonna say that hydroponics is a system of growing where the nutrition is delivered to the plants with water rather than with soil. We're not going to cover it on a module. However, if you have interest in pursuing hydroponic style gardening, we can recommend experts for you and get you some more information. Okay, And the last slide we have here are, these are online resources that are again provided by the Gardening Entrepreneurship Guide that Dr. Gonzalez put together. This is additional information on the topics that I have covered today. There's a lot of great information. The Old Farmer's Almanac is a great guide. I really like that one. And of course, extension publications it's solid information that you can trust. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gonzalez, and I think we're going to see what questions there are.
Oh, thank you, Amy. That was a great presentation. I enjoy the videos you're talking. And let's go open the session for questions and answers. Somebody, I'm going to unmute everybody. If somebody want to intervene, you can unmute yourself. But everybody is on mute at this time. There is a question on the chat, I think.
Then we ask our questions. Okay, I wanted to know, like the blue light that you were talking about for inside gardening, where do you find those, and are they very expensive? Do you have any experience with that?
I've got a seed starting area in my home, and it's a regular fluorescent light that my husband ran like wire and cable ties and string and to hang it over my plants. But I didn't buy standard fluorescent bulbs. I bought 2 grow light bulbs, and they're labeled grow light bulbs. You can usually find them in the lawn and garden section at like Lowe's or Walmart is where I found them. If you're having trouble finding them, ask, but they should be labeled grow lights. There'll be plant lights. And they're not, I can't remember, it was like $6 a bulb. I had to buy 2 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, they are not that expensive. I have seen them in our Ace hardware store. This is Nadia. There might be some more questions.
I was wondering if you could share the PowerPoint via email or something.
Yeah. We are going to share the information to everybody in the session, and also we are going to create a YouTube video from this presentation. We are going to post it on our websites here at Lincoln, and also you can connect to them from that way too.
Another thing, you that are more, experienced, I want to know, like, I want to try something from Spain, and those seeds, I can get them in Amazon. I was wondering if you all, before I buy it, you could check into it, you could look at it and let me know if it has a chance to grow here in mid-Missouri.
Yes, I will connect with you. All about seeds, about what you have.
And I can add that we have a greenhouse at Lincoln University where we can test some of the seeds.
Great.
Eliazar, can you say something about the compost? Jessica made put in the chat about the price of compost, and maybe some people might be interested.
Yes. Well, like for this program, let me unmute.
Stuff now, huh?
You hear me?
Yeah. Called Pantry Energy Ball. Oh. And
Somebody needs to be muted.
Can you hear me?
yes.
Good. Yeah, you can buy compost soil or mixed gardening soil in different locations. Like the price for a cubic yard like we ordered 13 cubic yards to a compost, San Luis compost. The price for each cubic yard was $31 a cubic yard, and a cubic yard will be easily cover a garden from 4 to 8 feet. So, and that soil is the one we are going to use to create the beds. We are planning for 15 families here in the area.
Yeah, I usually go to All Seasons Landscaping here in Jeff and take my husband's truck, and it's $50 and they load it up with backhoe and just dump it in there for me. Although I have found that if you do something like that, I'll put a tarp down in the bed so that as I go through and push it out, as I get close to being done, I can just lift up the tarp and easily get it out.
Thinking that in Colombia, there is, the city of Colombia has certain time of the year, they have really good compost available. And it might be $15 now, but we can provide that information if anybody is interested. I can check on that.
Yeah.
Okay, the place she mentioned that she gets compost in Jefferson City, this is Kathy Johnson, I'm sorry. Was that place on Route C?
Yes, it's off Route C.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the
That's all I
soil.
need to know.
Yeah,
I was looking for the address to put it out there.
okay, there is a local provider. Have you heard about Bluebeard Compost? They also have very good soil. They are here in Fulton. And also the City of Columbia. The City of Columbia say they had the option to buy compost, but I was making more information. I'm making more information about what Nadia shared to you. The price for the cubic yard is $20, but the quality, you will need to mix a lot of more soil with that compost to increase the quality of that soil. You have to add a lot of amendments a little bit because it's very much what they have there. Somebody else has more questions?
Yeah, Amy, you mentioned about using milk crates. What was it that you said that you used to keep the soil in the crate?
I use layers of newspaper. I find that, newspaper naturally like folds in half. If you unfold it and so it's L-shaped, it fits perfectly. And then you just put like 4. So it goes up each side, and then the layers at the bottom, it's thick. And so over the season of watering and watering and watering, it still holds in the soil. I like them because they have handles.
Paper. I wanted to ask about the time. Why you have it so late in the evening?
Oh, because at this time, everybody went out of their jobs. Like normally the people who we are looking to service are those people who have a daytime job. They have to come to home, and they need to be a little bit more like in relaxed spaces to connect with us. And it's really like that was one of the reasons. The other reason was we made a short survey to those people who are in the program for building beds with them, and if it was a better time after working.
It's posted a survey in the chat. It was posted at 6:03, so you may have to scroll up just a little bit to see it. And it's a survey. We would like all of our participants to click the link and to fill it out.
We are going to email that survey to everybody.
Okay.
Is that the one you sent yesterday?
No, this is different.
Or
This
it's a
is
different one?
this is a new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
You, Sarah?
I just put this. I just put it up in the screen share. That's here's your link, and this is also in the chat.
But well, let's go back to the session. Well, it is 6:12 now. We wonder if you had more questions for us.
You know, with a blue light, you said the name of a light. Could you write it down on the chat so I can see what you said? How it's spelled, the name of the light?
Grow lights. It's not a brand. I don't know what the brand would be, but they're grow lights.
Oh, grow lights, like GROW?
I've seen them with a W or without a W. They'll say grow lights or plant lights.
All right. I was not understanding, you
No,
know.
it's okay. It's okay.
That's why
I wish I had an example of like what it would be like if you went to Ace Hardware, what the package would look like, but I don't know that.
We are going to clarify any question. Just feel free to send any question to us. We are going to have our next session next week on Thursday. We are going to talk about soil and more about soil. We are going to send you, after this session is over, we are going to send you a link to connect with a survey so you can evaluate the session and evaluate how much knowledge you acquired today. And if you don't have more questions, we are so happy to have you with us and be part of this program. Please connect with us.
Oh, okay, I see that.
We'll check that later.
Okay, great. Thank you for showing it.
Thank you, Amy.
That wasn't me. I don't know who that was, but it was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, whoever that was.
Whoever put that out there was good. It was perfect. They're not expensive, but they're better. You'll be more successful if you use it.
Yeah.
Great.
It looks like Miss Gordon has a question about finding cheap soil. Did anybody have another quick suggestion for her?
Indoor or outdoor? Are you looking for like containers inside? You can get 2 cubic foot of potting mix at Walmart for $5.97. If you're going outside, you can get a bag of topsoil for $1.97 and a bag of cow manure for about $2.30. And if you mix the two together, it's a pretty good start.
If you go to the compost facility that I was talking about, All Seasons Landscaping, you can dig it up yourself and put it into a pot for free.
Well, five cubic yards, you're going to need a truckload. Do you have a truck or do you need to have it delivered? Yes. Yes, what? Do you have a truck? You have a truck? Then they'll load it in your, well, I use Coinsfield Excavating is who brings my topsoil for me, and they're local. And if somebody needs delivery, Larry will bring it right to your house. But
how much are you looking to pay for 5 cubic yards with delivery included? Because San Luis Compost, they will charge you like $450 for dropping it to Columbia, $450. And the price for each cubic yard will be $31. So you are talking about $650 for all that soil.
It looks like she's looking for the cheapest place in Columbia.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bluebeard Compost, have you tried them? They had a good deal too. Bluebeard Compost, they are in Fulton.
Michael Tarka is in Columbia and he works at a garden center. He would probably be a good resource. I could throw Michael Tarka's information out there. Michael is former Cooperative Extension staff. And I forget.
Yeah, and it's good that Andrew also mentions Bluebird Compost. If they are in Ashland, so you would need your own truck to get you get soil from them, and
They are in
it can
Columbia.
be. I'm sorry.
They are in Columbia too, by Rain Line.
They have bulk available?
No,
Oh, so that's good. So it's in Ashland and Columbia. And that would be I don't think it's that expensive for probably would be around 40, 50 actually.
I
For
can
a
also
raised bed.
I can also share that Crazy Dick's Lawn and Garden will deliver. I think he'll come to Columbia. He charges $40 for a scoop for fill dirt. And and a scoop is like his big truck scoop, and he might be able to deliver that for you as well.
Okay. Well, see what all the information in your chatting is a lot of good information and contacts. So all of you might have, depending where you live. Okay.
Well, I will thank you, everybody. It is time for everybody. We planned the meeting for 5:30 to 6:15. We don't want to take too much time of much of your time, but we are looking forward to see you next week. We will send you the invitation. We will send you the information, and hopefully by that time we have our guy that is going to help you to follow the workshop. That guide sheet also have information about where to find those resources you are talking about right now. Yeah, we are looking forward to get your feedback. We are going to send you these evaluation forms so we can improve. Thank you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Eleazar and Amy. Thank you for the great presentation.
Thanks for logging in, everybody.
All right. Hey, Nadia, I've got a quick question for you. You know, with the garlic.
I will call you. I will call you right now. I'll call you, Patsy.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Great job. Thank you for your time.
Lady.